this is Barb Bedwell. I am the chemistry and physics teacher here at South Tahoe High School. So I'm wishing you a warm welcome this evening. Thank you for tuning in and taking a look at this experience that your kids are having to go through to do their learning this year. Definitely a historic school year, and I just got to say that all of my students just have really been incredible so far this year. We all acknowledge that this isn't maybe the optimal way to do school, but everyone's trying to do the best that they can and to make the best out of it. So, Chem 2 honor students a little cut above the rest anyway, I got to say. But, this group of students that I've got, just absolutely outstanding. And it's so much fun to work with them. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to teach your students and to work with them through this truly historic year. I'm still holding out hope, man, that in October we can all be back together and have some time to do some of the cool labs and stuff that we really can't do in this online experience. So we'll see how this goes. So anyway, my little video here is just to introduce the course, give you a quick tour of Canvas or my Canvas website and kind of how it's set up, and then give you some ideas that just about kind of what some of the assignments look like and sort of where we're going. So my intent in a course like this, Chem 2 Honors, is this is meant to be fairly similar to what like a first-year college chemistry course would be. And it won't be quite the same as that with this online environment, but it's to really prepare them for what that college experience is a little bit like. So most of my students that do well in Chem 2 have gone on to college and been, quite successful in their first college chem class. Some of them even skipped it, but hey, I wouldn't suggest that. So anyway, that's the goal. Like I said, it is an honors class, so it is definitely a little bit higher standard. It does require some independence, and it requires a lot of communication. That's going to be the big part. That number one tool for success for your students is just to communicate and to make sure that they're staying on top of things. Time management, I think, is the number 2 tool for success. So here's what my Canvas website looks like. If you haven't been on Canvas yet, I really strongly recommend that you join Canvas as an observer. You can either talk with your student about that. I can invite you directly. You can send me an email and I can help you with that. Or if you go to the LTUSD website, to the Parents tab, I believe that one of the resources on that Parents tab is a how-to guide, how to join as an observer. And that allows you just to kind of see what the class looks like. You don't have to do the homework, but it does let you kind of see what the class is set up as. Chemistry, I hope you know, is like totally one of my favorite subjects between chemistry and physics. And I go back and forth, but definitely one of my favorite subjects. But it's definitely a challenging subject. Trying to think about very abstract concepts. Chemistry actually occurs at the invisible atomic level, even though we can see signs of reactions at the visible level, macroscopic level. But it's super abstract in that sense. And then we do a lot of math in here too. So combining abstract thinking with mathematical thinking always makes chemistry a challenge. It's one of the things that I really love about it. And chemistry is called the central science. It is definitely one of those critical tools that opens a lot of doors as you get into college. If chemistry is difficult for you, then there are certain majors that are just going to be really challenging. So it's my goal to kind of facilitate that learning process. And no matter what, if your students are good at chemistry or bad at chemistry, we can help you grow and get better and develop some of those academic skills. So there's my homepage. It's kind of what it looks like. I always will update my little memes and things on there. There's always a link there to my Zoom meetings. I have a Zoom account through a different organization that I'm a member in, so I will probably continue to use that Zoom account unless we get Big Blue Button worked out, but we'll figure that out some other time. Up on the left over here is kind of where we sort of function. My course is organized through modules, is what I use. So think of a module as being a unit. So click on my modules page so you can kind of see what it looks like when I pull it up. The first week of class, we did a couple of activities, a couple of sets of activities. Like online Canvas scavenger hunt was about learning how to use a lot of Canvas tools and practice with submitting assignments and things like that. And then the introductory activities were things like read the policies, read the syllabus, introduce yourself in a little video, those sorts of things. So if you've checked your students' grades and you're wondering why they're missing things, it's probably from those first 2 units. So don't worry about it too much. Those were meant to be introductory activities. And if your students put effort into participating, they'll get the points for those. There's a few people that kind of come and go, but those should be pretty good. The general course information will always be the second module from the top. And that's literally what it sounds like, general course information. So there is a link here where it says absent, click here. I will try to remember to record my Zoom meetings. Technology is a little funky, but I will try to record our Zoom meetings. They're only about a half an hour long, so it's definitely very focused on a particular topic, but I'll put them up there. So if someone's absent, they can click on that link and pull up a recording of the video, or if, Wi-Fi goes out or something like that, there should be a way to have access to that. There's also links to the textbook. There's a PDF, a horrible to PDF, but it's there. And some just sort of general reference materials and some of the STHS materials about distance learning. So that's kind of always on that main modules page. And then at the top of the page will be the current module that we are working in. So the older modules will shift down, and we'll keep putting the modules up at the top. And so you can kind of see what we've got. We sort of have a lab activity that we're trying to work on, but having only these half-hour Zoom meetings is hard to get there. And then you can see there's chapter 1 topics, chapter 1 notes, chapter 1 homework problems. So that's kind of the meat of the actual points for the chapter in terms of where they're going to come from. The chapter 1 topics, I've just provided an outline, and I'll kind of do this in every section, since I don't get to see your kids in person, but kind of gives them an overview of what the important ideas were, some of the things to get, kind of where to focus their energy so that they can practice. They do need to read the text, and they will need to take notes on the text. But there's a couple of sections here, 1 and 2, that are quick scan review. I don't really need a bunch of notes. But 1.3, probably a quick scan. 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, you can see there's more topics in there. That's probably where they're going to spend the bulk of their energy on there. The next one on there is the chapter 1 notes. So students should be taking notes. I am requiring students to take notes. Normally, if we were in class, I would require them to take lecture notes. So here they're going to have to kind of take some textbook notes and take a look at what that is. There's a document here that they can upload and take notes in, or your students are welcome to use a spiral bound notebook and take their notes in there. Totally fine. I'm really, really flexible when it comes to the format. I'm more about the process than the product, right? So the note catcher itself, here's what this notes document looks like, just so you have some idea. I'm giving it some structure to kind of help students grow and develop some of their note-taking skills. It is definitely a skill. And so if it's optional, they don't need to necessarily do that part. But what I'm having them do is for each section, do a little bit of notes that's in there. So what's the name of the section? What was the topic? What's your list of key vocab? What are their notes? I always encourage my students to take notes that are meaningful for them, so they don't necessarily need to take the same amount of notes. I don't need paragraphs and sentences of all kinds of stuff if it's stuff they already know. But this should be like the aha moments, like, oh, I really need to know this. And students are welcome to do this, like I said, in a spiral bound notebook or something like that on paper. In fact, I recommend that they do it on paper. It's better for their brains. And then they could just upload a photograph of it here instead. So they could just take a picture. If it's just a little snapshot, they could put it in there, or they could kind of delete this and put this underneath. This is fine, and just take a picture of the page from the notebook. Key parts that I'm trying to get students to develop this year, since we are, requiring a lot more independent learning this year with this online modality, is to work on their summary and their unanswered questions. Most adults are kind of familiar with the concept of a summary, of putting it in your own words, but students have a hard time with that. It's a skill that a lot of them need to practice. But I encourage them to take notes and then kind of step away from their notes a little bit and go, what was important from today? What were the big ideas? Not restate every single thing, but those kind of big core aha moments, and to actually make these sentences meaningful. For example, like today we learned about sig figs is not a very meaningful summary, but we learned that the multiplication rule for sig figs has to do with the number of digits, and then the addition rule for sig figs has to do with the number of decimal places. A meaningful sentence should go in there to sort of summarize the big ideas. A lot of times students will say, well, I get it, I just can't explain it. I just have a hard time putting it in words. And as a teacher, that usually means that they don't really get it. They're sort of struggling with verbalizing it. And writing that summary is a really critical place where students can identify if they truly do understand a topic, or if they're just sort of generically kind of get it in the background. Putting it in words really solidifies someone's understanding. And then as they go through it, a lot of times they'll realize they're trying to put something in words, but they really missed something. That's what the unanswered questions is for. And for students, especially those going to college, knowing what you know is important. That's in the summary, right? Knowing what you don't know is even more powerful. And that's what the unanswered questions is for. So they can say, hey, I'm really still a little unclear in the sig fig rules of addition versus multiplication. Like I know there's a difference, but I'm not quite sure what it is. Fine, put that in the unanswered questions. And that gives me a place to start. Or they could put hypotheticals like, could you have an infinite number of sig figs? Or what happens if you have multiplication and division in the same problem? What do you do there? Unanswered questions. They can kind of go beyond the lesson if someone's really thinking big. So that's kind of the note-taking document. There's a section for each section in there. Again, just to give a framework for their thinking. Again, if they're doing it in an actual paper notebook, kind of expect a section per page is typically what I would look for. So your students should be using their textbook, and then they should be taking some hopefully meaningful notes and practicing that skill on that. And then the last thing is, along with each chapter, there is definitely a set of homework problems. A lot of them focus on the math or the actual skills that they need to do. As parents, I would like you to know, and as students, I want you to know, I don't assign a bunch of homework, but that doesn't mean it doesn't take much time. But I don't assign a bunch of different problems. I try to encourage kids to really focus on their learning and their knowledge as they're doing their homework, rather than trying to beat them to death with 25 practice problems of something. So I try to have them be thoughtful about the work that they're doing rather than bury them under quantity. I really focus on the quality if I can. It's important for you as parents and family members to know that I do require that students show their work. Students get points for the work that they show, not the answers that they get. My philosophy is that homework is an opportunity to make mistakes and to identify when you understand something or not. So a lot of times, especially with math problems, I'll provide them with the answers. It's not really about the answer. It's about doing the problem and understanding what you're doing, and then checking yourself against an answer, and then saying, "Hey, Ms. B, I don't understand. I got 3.75, and this answer says 21.2. Something's wrong. What did we do?" So that's what I'm trying to encourage. Again, so I don't really grade homework on correctness. It's more of a participation grade, I guess, in some ways, so for them to grow. I mean, that's what it really should be, not an aha moment or not an I gotcha moment. There you go, for doing your homework. So that's kind of what we end up doing. So now for our assessments, that's going to be a little bit different in here. It's very difficult to do tests in this online format. It's way too easy to cheat, I should say. So we're probably going to do our assessments is probably going to be more of an explain what you know sort of thing, either a project or a lab, or maybe a video where a kid could, literally demonstrate what they get, just convince me that you understand it. So that's kind of how this is going to end up going through the course of the year. So I think I've got most of the things I've got. Looking at my list of topics that I had an outline for myself. Okay, so the last thing is, how do you help your kid if you never took chemistry, or if you were no good at it, or if it was too long ago? Your students are preparing to go to college, and they're not going to be able to lean on you for deadlines and things like that. So the biggest things that you as family members can do to support your students through this year and through this class is to help enforce a couple of different things. Number one of the most important things for students that are successful is that they're setting themselves a schedule. And keeping it. Now, that doesn't have to be a strict hour-by-hour schedule, but they're setting themselves, goals in their heads of here's what I need to get done today, tomorrow, the next day. And they're not procrastinating. They're learning to pace themselves out. That is definitely one of the most important things for students that were being successful last year. Second big thing that students were being successful was communication, is that those students weren't procrastinating. They had that schedule for themselves, but they were willing to communicate. They were willing to sit there and go, I don't understand this, and ask for help, either from me if they're comfortable, or from other peers, whatever works. But that sort of that self-awareness piece is really, really critical, to not just go to the homework and then hope it goes away, but to really focus on their understanding. This is a big difference between high school and college. A lot of times high school students just want to get it done, right, give me the points, how do I move on? And college students know that their understanding is really the key point. And so that's one of the big maturity pieces that comes with students, especially in Chem 2. So again, building that schedule and kind of sticking to it, not procrastinating till the last minute, but then, helping students focus on that understanding. And communication is a big part of that, like knowing that they don't get it and being willing to ask for help, not just praying that it's going to go away. You as parents or family members, you can help your students by allowing them to explain to you, like, here's what I understand and here's what I don't understand. That verbalization process can be super important. And sometimes just asking somebody else, like, hey, will you listen to this? Does this make sense? Is a really, really valuable piece. Second thing would be to do some of those meta skills, like asking a student, well, what have you tried? Where are your notes? Can you show me what you've written down so far? Can you explain to me what you've got in your notes? Tell me what you know, and then see if you can kind of explain to me where you get stuck. Those are things that any family member can do, and that's where I start with students as well. Similarly, with math and things like that, when they get stuck, again, encourage them to communicate early, encourage them to be organized in what they do with their work and how they lay it out, encourage them to show their work and be able to show each step, because if they can't show it or explain why a step is there, then they really don't understand it. So those are things that you as a family member can really do. Just encourage them. And then the last part as a family member is really about setting the right mood. This is a historic school year. This is challenging in so many different ways. Academically, it's challenging online, but then just the world is so challenging right now. Being able to build balance into your students' lives is really important. Encouraging them to get outside, encouraging them to make sure that they get some exercise and see the light of day, encouraging them to balance, taking breaks between doing work and then doing something fun, and then doing some work and then doing something fun, and encouraging them to take breaks when they really need it, but then try to keep picking away at that work, even though they maybe don't want to do it. This is hard for all of us. Me too. So the more we can keep those lines of communication open, the more we can reduce the stigma of depression, the more we can reduce the stigma of worrying about if you're sick or not and what that's like, the more we can just talk and communicate and treat each other like human beings. That's really going to be the key towards long-term success. That's how we all grow. The skills that your students are going to learn through this class and learning through navigating this technology, the self-reliance, the independence, being able to take advantage of the flexibility of the schedule that this offers, the technology and being able to navigate that, the problem solving. Those are lifelong skills that will serve your students well through college and through the rest of their lives. So, like I said, thank you so much for letting me, enjoy your students this year, letting me be with them, because they are why I do this, because this is hard to talk to a computer all day. Keep those lines of communication open, keep that humor and keep the smile open as much as we possibly can, and hang in there. Hopefully I'll be able to see all of your students face to face, at least a little bit here in October. Wear your mask, right? Spread kindness, not COVID, so that we can all go back to school together and enjoy the rest of this year. So thanks for tuning in tonight. I hope you found this informative, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Like I said, thanks for letting me share your students this year. Have a great night.